The day my childhood sweetheart, Bai Nangbing, went abroad. She gripped my sleeve with tearful eyes and called me big brother. You have to wait for me to come back, she said. Don't you dare fall for anyone else. I smiled and nodded, giving her my word. But the moment I turned around, I blocked her on everything. That same night, I packed my bags and moved back to my hometown to farm. Then one day, my rundown old yard was chosen as a filming site for the show Pastoral Life. The top star, Bai Nangbing, arrived wearing a straw hat. She pushed open the wicker gate and gave the camera a sweet smile. Hi, everyone. This is the place where I lived as a child. I was squatting in the vegetable patch pulling radishes. I looked up, only to be caught in her gaze, which had instantly turned cold and dark. That night, the trending searches exploded. Bai Nangbing's childhood sweetheart. The top star's mysterious childhood friend. Why did he run away? Shaking, I opened Weibo. The latest post was from 5 minutes ago. The user was Bai Nangbing. Su Yan, you'd better have a good explanation. Why did your family happen to move away? The very day I returned to the country, I first heard that Bai Nangbing was back. From the TV at the village store. I was chewing on a popsicle at the time, while playing chess with Old Wang. Old Wang squinted at the screen. The entertainment host's voice was shrill enough to pierce the roof. Breaking news. International award-winning actress Bai Nangbing officially returns today. At just 24, she has already won a major international film festival award. This genius actress is constantly in the spotlight. Her every move is being watched. My hand jerked. I almost dropped my chess piece on my foot. Old Wang chuckled as he took my knight. Focus, kid. Keep your head in the game. Your chess skills are nowhere near as good as your farming. I stared at the TV screen. Bai Nangbing walked out of the airport's VIP passage. Sunglasses covered half her face. The lines of her jaw were sharp and cold. Camera flashes were popping everywhere. She gave the lens a slight nod. She didn't smile. Surrounded by bodyguards and staff, she left quickly. She looked like a different person. From the girl with the ponytail who used to cry and grab my sleeve. Do we know each other? Old Wang followed my gaze to the TV. That girl is pretty, for sure. But she looks like she's not to be messed with, eh? I pulled my eyes away. I shoved the melting popsicle into my mouth, the cold making my teeth ache. I don't know her, I said, my voice muffled. I'm just a guy watching TV. How could I ever be associated with a big star like her? Old Wang clicked his tongue, but didn't ask further. He turned his focus back to the chessboard. But my mind had drifted back 3 years. It was also summer when Bai Nangbing went abroad. The airport was bustling with people. Her eyes were red like a rabbit's. She was deathly afraid as she clutched my sweatshirt sleeve. Her nails were almost digging into my skin. Su Yan, she said, her voice trembling. She looked both fierce and pitiful. It's only 2 years. I'll be back as soon as I finish my studies. You're not allowed to like anyone else. Don't you dare forget me. Do you hear me? How did I answer her back then? I said, I know, stop nagging. Just go in so you don't miss your flight. Then I pried her fingers off, one by one. I pushed her toward the security checkpoint. She kept looking back at me, as tears streamed down her face. I stood there, watching her back disappear into the crowd. Then I left the airport and immediately took out my phone. WeChat, QQ. I blocked and deleted every way she could contact me. I went home, packed a single bag, and bought the earliest train ticket back to my hometown. I made a clean break, overnight. There was no cliché drama, no fights, no misunderstandings. I just felt like it had to end. Bai Nangbing was too good. So good that I felt I didn't deserve her. She was like a rising star, destined to hang in the highest, brightest sky. And me? Su Yan. I'm as ordinary gets. My biggest dream was to look after a few acres in my hometown and grow some fruits and vegetables, taking naps under the shade in summer, chewing on sweet potatoes by the stove in winter. Our life paths diverged the moment she received that acceptance letter from the world's top film academy. From that second, we split. She was racing ahead, while I stayed behind. The gap between us was only going to widen. Better a clean break than a slow burn. Before she soared too high, I cut the string. It was better for her, and for me. These 3 years back home, I farmed and repaired the old house. I'd take the occasional freelance design job. Life was as calm as the deep water at the village entrance. Even a stone wouldn't cause much of a splash. I thought my life would just be like this forever. Until the village chief knocked on my door. He was grinning from ear to ear. "Su Yan, good news. Huge news. There's this big show called Pastoral Life. They've chosen our village for their celebrity lineup. They specifically asked to use your yard for filming." My heart skipped a beat. "Why my house?" The production team said. "They love your place's style. Authentic and full of life." The chief patted my shoulder. "Don't worry. They're paying quite a bit. The whole village will get some exposure. Who knows? We might become a tourist spot." I tried to refuse, but the chief didn't even give me a chance. He left happily, leaving me with the production contact's business card. The next day, the crew arrived. Director, producer, a whole team of staff. They circled my little yard. They kept nodding. "Not bad. Really not bad. This fence, the solid wood, this old well, it's got such a great vibe." The director was a middle-aged man, with a spark in his eye. "Mr. Su will start setting up in 3 days. Filming officially begins in a week. You might need to clear out during the shoot. Of course, we'll put you up in the best hotel in town." "No need," I interrupted. "I'll stay at my uncle's next door. I need to keep an eye on things." The seed of unease in my heart began to grow like weeds. 3 days later, my yard was packed with equipment, lights, and reflectors. I squatted on my uncle's roof, watching the busy crowd below. It felt absurdly surreal. The day before filming, the director handed me the final guest list. "Just get familiar with the schedule, so even if you're not on camera, you won't wander into a shot." By mistake, I took the paper and scanned the row of names. My eyes froze on the very last one. Bai Ningbing. Black ink on white paper. I gripped the edge of the paper so hard my knuckles turned white. "Bai Ningbing?" I heard my voice falter. "Yeah, Bai Ningbing, our biggest star this season. She signed on right after returning home. The buzz is going to be insane." The director was ecstatic. "Who would have thought? You follow entertainment news too, Mr. So." I forced a smile and said nothing. "I follow it all right. Too much. I spent 3 years hiding, thinking mountains and oceans separated us, along with our completely different lives. Then, out of nowhere, a variety show drops her right into my backyard. What kind of cosmic joke is this? Should I pack my bags and run again?" I looked at the old yard, renovated beyond recognition, but still holding traces of our childhood. Suddenly, I felt tired. You can run, but you can't hide forever. My home is here. Where else could I go? What will be, will be. The next day, filming officially began. I was dragged out of bed early by my uncle. He shoved an old straw hat and a hoe into my hands. "Head over to our family plot. Don't hang around here. It's not good if you end up in their shots." I put on the hat, shouldered the hoe, and slowly walked toward the patch at the edge of the village. My mind was a total mess. I couldn't quite describe the feeling. Nervous? Scared? Not exactly. It was more like a numb sense of resignation. I was absent-mindedly pulling weeds. As the sun climbed higher, I remembered the laundry drying in the yard. Thinking the crew wouldn't be filming in that corner yet, I started heading back. As I approached my place, I heard a huge commotion. It was noisier than a village market. The show's cameras were all pointed right at my gate. My first instinct was to hide, but my feet felt like they were stuck in mud. The gate pushed open, and a figure walked in. A white linen shirt, light blue denim shorts, and an oversized straw hat provided by the production team. The sunlight cast a soft, golden glow around her. She looked up toward the main camera, offering a perfect smile, filled with nostalgia and surprise. The curve of her lips, the sparkle in her eyes. It was all as precise as if measured with a ruler. "Hi, everyone." Her voice carried through the noisy background, clear and melodious. "I'm Bei Ningbing. I lived here when I was little, so it feels very special to be back." My heart stopped for a second. Then, as if sensing something, she looked away from the camera. Her eyes landed unerringly on me, hiding in the shadows. Her smile froze instantly. In those beautiful eyes, the warmth that was just there vanished like a receding tide, leaving them completely cold. Only a sharp, icy gaze remained, filled with intense scrutiny and simmering anger. 10 meters away, we were separated by busy staff members and dark camera lenses. We just stared at each other. Time seemed to stretch out, every second thick and suffocating. I was frozen on the spot, holding a muddy hoe and wearing a ridiculous old straw hat. I looked exactly like some clueless farmer who'd blundered onto a film set. She looked at me, and I looked at her. 3 years. She was even more beautiful now. A refined, distant kind of beauty that felt out of place against this mud house and broken fence. But the fire in her eyes hadn't changed a bit. The director seemed to sense something. He followed her gaze and froze for a moment. His expression shifted instantly. He quickly barked something into his walkie-talkie, then signaled me frantically to leave. I snapped out of it, pulled my hat lower, and turned to slip away. "Wait!" A cold female voice rang out. It wasn't loud, but it had a strangely piercing quality that made the noise around us die down. My back went stiff under everyone's watchful eyes. Bai Ningbing took 2 steps toward me. Then she stopped and looked at the director. That impeccable, gentle smile returned to her face, though her eyes remained cold. "Director, who is that?" She pointed at me. The director hurried to explain. "Oh, that's just the owner of this house. He's not with the crew. Don't worry about him, Miss Bai." He gave me another stern glare. "The owner?" she repeated, her voice rising slightly. She looked back at me. Her eyes swept over the hoe in my hand and my mud-covered shoes. A faint, inscrutable smile played on her lips. "You look quite familiar," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for the nearby staff and all the boom mic to catch it. "I thought you were an old friend I used to know." In that instant, my heartbeat hammered against my eardrums like a physical blow. I didn't dare look back. I practically stumbled away as I fled the area. Her gaze felt like a red-hot needle, prickling the back of my neck. Back at my uncle's, I locked myself in my room, my heart still thumping wildly. Familiar, old friend. She did that on purpose. Given Bai Ningbing's current status and acting skills, if she really wanted to pretend we were strangers, she had 1,000 ways to pull it off. She could have ignored me entirely, but she just had to say those words. In that setting, with that tone, what is she playing at? I collapsed onto the bed, staring at the yellowed patterns on the ceiling. My mind was a complete mess. I was restless for the rest of the day. My uncle's house isn't far from mine, so the noise from the shoot drifted over. Laughter, conversations, and occasionally Bai Ningbing's clear, pleasant voice. She was a natural in front of the camera, introducing the yard where she played as a child. The old well, the persimmon tree, by the gate. Her tone was filled with the perfect amount of nostalgia and sentiment. It sent a chill down my spine. Our shared childhood and youth had become nothing more than an understated backdrop for a variety show script. A footnote to her down-to-earth star persona. It was so freaking ridiculous. I pulled out my phone. The screen was dark. In the 3 years since I returned, I'd become a relica. The only things I used my smartphone for were QR payments and weather forecasts. I'd uninstalled all social media long ago. But now, driven by an intense unease, I re-downloaded Weibo. I logged in. My account, which had been gathering dust, instantly exploded with red notification numbers. 9,999 DMs and comments. Likes, mentions, red dots filled the entire screen. The phone even lagged for a few seconds. My fingers were shaking as I opened the DMs. The top ones were from just now, buzzing with fresh heat. OMG girlies, go watch the Pastoral Life livestream. Is that guy with the hoe? The childhood sweetheart Ningbing mentioned. OP, are you still alive? What's your relationship with BI Ningbing? I'm here from the trending list. Dude, you're viral, even with just a side profile. He's so hot, like a brooding, rugged heartthrob. Exposed. Who is BI Ningbing's mysterious childhood friend? Is it you? Must be a script. Total media play. The older DMs were all over the place. A few were from years ago. Random greetings from followers who liked an old landscape photo of my hometown. There were weird ads too, but most were from the last few hours, surging in like a tide as the live stream began, full of shock, curiosity, and gossip. I checked the top 10 trending topics. 3 related tags were hanging there. #Bainingbing, childhood sweetheart, pastor, life, mysterious stranger, why'd her run away overnight. My eyelid twitched violently. I clicked a third one. The top post was from an entertainment blog, complete with live-streamed screenshots. One was a full-length shot of her in my yard. Another was me with the hoe, wearing the straw hat, a blurry side profile as I turned to flee. And one was a close-up of BI Ningbing's face, going cold, as she looked my way. The caption was incredibly provocative. Insane drama alert. BI Ningbing's childhood friend appears on livestream. According to netizens, the filming location is her actual childhood home, and this mysterious young man seems to have a deep history with her. Ningbing's face fell the second she saw him. She even called him an old friend. How cryptic. Even more shocking. Former neighbors claim the guy moved away overnight. Right after she went abroad, he vanished completely and cut off all contact. Is this some epic star-crossed lover's angst? Follow for more updates. The comments were exploding. Holy crap. Holy crap. Fiction becomes reality. The top star and her runaway sweetheart. Am I the only one who thinks he looks stunning? Total babe. That wild, uninhibited vibe is everything. But why did he run? Moving the second she leaves. That's so cold. Did he do something to hurt our Ningbing? Trash guy. Look at her cold eyes. There's definitely a story there. The script for this show is way too obvious. Are we getting a reunion scene next? Doesn't look scripted. That look on her face. She wasn't acting. She's a good actress, but that was raw. Anyone know who this guy is? A guest representative. Check at Suyan. Might be him. Inactive for 3 years. The location matches. At Suyan, come out and talk. I closed Weibo and tossed the phone aside. My temples were throbbing. I'm done. I'm totally done. I'm completely exposed in the spotlight now. I can already imagine the swarm of reporters, paparazzi, and influencers trying to find their way to this remote village. My peaceful days are over. I frustratedly ran my hands through my hair. My eyes fell on that ID that had been silent for 3 years, now tagged by thousands. Should I explain? But how? Say I felt unworthy, that I ran away out of some inferiority complex. Who would believe that? Even I find it sentimental and pathetic looking back. Or say I was tired of waiting, tired of the uncertainty. So I just cut ties. That would only prove I'm a scumbag. No matter what I say, it's wrong. I was staring at the ceiling in a daze when the phone on the bed vibrated. It wasn't a Weibo notification. It was a text. A strange feeling hit me. I slowly picked up the phone. A text from an unknown number was sitting there. Only a few words, but they felt like ice, stabbing right into my eyes. Su-yan, you'd better explain clearly. Why did your family happen to move away the very day I returned? Sent 5 minutes ago. No contact name. But even after 3 years, I recognized the number instantly. It ended in 1017. Her birthday. By Ningbing. She found me. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the screen, unable to type a single letter. Explanation. Where would I even start? That I'm a coward? That I was insecure? That I thought I was doing what was best for her? She wouldn't believe it. Or maybe she doesn't even want that kind of explanation. Knowing her, she didn't send this looking for an answer. She was venting. She's demanding an answer. She's using this to tell me, Su-yan, you're finished. You can't run anymore. I wiped my face and threw my phone face down on the bed. Outside the window, the noise from the crew seemed to quiet down. Maybe they moved to another location. The last rays of the sunset filtered through the old window, casting a dim yellow glow on the concrete floor. The gardenias my mother planted in the yard were in full bloom this year. The evening breeze carried their scent inside. It was so thick it felt bitter. It was just like us. Our youth had started to rot before it even had a chance to bloom. I don't know how much time passed, but my phone vibrated again. Another text from the same number. This time it was even shorter. Just 2 words and a mark. Speak. Even through the screen, I could imagine her expression right now. Her lips would be pursed, her beautiful brows slightly furrowed, her eyes burning with anger, and a trace of hurt she probably didn't even notice. She was hurt. My heart felt like it had been struck by something, leaving it aching and numb. In the end, I picked up the phone and opened the reply box. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time. I typed and deleted, finally sending a single, hollow sentence. There's nothing to explain. It's all in the past. I hit send, then quickly powered off the phone and shoved it under my pillow, as if by doing that, I could escape the suffocating pressure of that number. I lay in bed with my eyes wide open until the darkness swallowed the last bit of light. My uncle called me for dinner, but I had no appetite. I made an excuse that I wasn't feeling well. Late at night, the village returned to silence. The crew seemed to have finished for the day, and the lights over at my house went dark. But I knew that once some things are uncovered, there's no going back. The next morning, I was jolted awake by violent pounding on the door. Su-yan, Su-yan, open up. Something's happened. It was my uncle, his voice frantic and high-pitched. I bolted out of bed and rushed to open the door. My uncle, drenched in sweat, pointed outside. Quick, done. Get to your yard. That star, Miss Bai. She fainted. My head started spinning. My mind went totally blank. Fainted? Bai Ningbing? Without thinking, I threw on a random t-shirt, stepped into my slippers, and sprinted out. The morning air in the village was damp and cool, but I was breaking into a sweat. A crowd had already gathered outside my yard. Staff from the show, curious villagers. It was a complete mess. The director and producer were pacing frantically. The medical staff were kneeling in the center of the yard. I pushed through the crowd. Bai Ningbing was lying on the rattan lounge chair under the old locust tree. That was where I had rested yesterday afternoon. Her face was deathly pale, her eyes tightly shut, and a thin layer of cold sweat covered her forehead. Her lips were colorless. This morning, the crew had put her in a floral cotton dress. It was stained with mud. The hem was disheveled, and she was clutching something tightly in her hand. It was a familiar, old tin box, rusted at the edges. I used that box to hide my treasures when I was a kid. It was tucked in a crack in the wall under my bed. Even my parents didn't know about it. How did she find it? And why did she faint here? What happened? I heard my own voice tighten. The director looked at me like I was his savior. Mr. Su, you're finally here. Miss Bai said she wanted to walk around alone this morning, to revisit some childhood memories. She wouldn't let us film her, so we didn't think much of it. Who knew she wouldn't be back after half an hour? Her assistant found her fainted right here. And she was holding this. He pointed at the tin box. The medic was a middle-aged woman. She looked up and said quickly, "Initial diagnosis is low blood sugar, coupled with some emotional distress. It's not serious. We've already given her some sugar. She needs to rest. But she hasn't fully come around yet. Her grip is too tight. We can't get the box out." Emotional distress. I looked at Bai Ningbing's pale face. And at her hand, clutching the tin box so hard her knuckles were white. My heart gave a painful tug. "Let me try." I stepped forward and knelt beside her. The surroundings instantly went quiet. Everyone's gaze focused on me, filled with curiosity, scrutiny, and tension. I ignored them. I reached out and gently placed my hand over hers. Her hand was cold, and it was still trembling slightly. "Ningbing," I whispered, using the name I hadn't spoken in 3 years. "Let go." She didn't respond, and her brows seemed to furrow even more. I took a deep breath, and using my other hand, I very gently pried her fingers open, one by one. My movements were cautious, as if I were handling a piece of fragile porcelain. Perhaps she felt a familiar touch, or maybe she heard my voice, but her fingers actually followed my lead and slowly released the tin box. It felt heavy in my hands, heavy with weight, and just then, Bai Ningbing's thick lashes fluttered, and she slowly opened her eyes. Her gaze was scattered for a few seconds. Then it quickly sharpened, landing on my face just inches away. There was no ice, no anger, only a hollow vacancy, a raw vulnerability without any disguise. But it only lasted for a brief moment. That familiar, thorny shell of hers instantly came back up. She looked away and tried to sit up. "Don't move." The medic quickly held her down. "Rest for a while longer." "How do you feel? Are you dizzy?" "I'm fine." Bai Ningbing's voice was a bit raspy, but very calm. She scanned the crowd of onlookers, her gaze finally settling on the tin box in my hand. She paused for a second, then quickly looked away. "Sorry for causing everyone trouble. It's just a bit of low blood sugar, an old problem of mine," she told the director and staff. Her tone had regained its usual composure, though her complexion was still poor. The director let out a sigh of relief, saying repeatedly that it was good she was okay, and telling her to rest well. The filming schedule for today could be adjusted. The crowd gradually dispersed, leaving only a few core staff members. The medic and an assistant. Bai Ningbing leaned back, closing her eyes as if to recover. The sunlight through the locust leaves cast shimmering, flickering patterns on her face. I stood there holding the tin box, unsure whether to leave or stay. "Su Yan," she suddenly spoke, without opening her eyes. You're holding my things." she said. I was taken aback and looked down at the tin box in my hand. This was clearly my old treasure box. But how did it become hers? Inside are things I hid as a child. I tried to explain. I know, she interrupted me, finally opening her eyes to look at me, her gaze calm and steady, but her voice carried an undeniable weight. Marbles, water margin cards, and a few pebbles, right? I was stunned. How could she know so exactly? She seemed to read the confusion on my face, the corner of her mouth twitching ever so slightly. It looked like mockery, or maybe something else, because I'm the one who put them in there. I was completely blindsided. She struggled to stand up. The medic tried to help her, but she gently waved them off and pushed herself up using the armrests. Though still a bit shaky, she walked over to me and reached out to take the tin box from my hands. She pried open the rusted lid with some effort. There were no marbles or cards inside. Instead, there was a thick stack of letters, carefully tied with a purple silk ribbon. They were all in matching light blue envelopes. In the bottom right corner, my name, Suyan, was written in elegant script, but the sender's line was left blank. The postmark on the top letter was from 4 years ago. The most recent one was from 3 years ago, about 3 months after she went abroad. Dozens, maybe 100 letters, lay silently inside that rusted tin box. I stood frozen to the spot. Blood rushed to my head for a second, then drained away just as quickly. She had written to me all these letters, and I hadn't received a single one. I had no idea they even existed. Bai Ningbing pulled out the top one. Her fingers traced the yellowed edges of the envelope as she looked up at me. In her beautiful eyes, my own shock and confusion were clearly reflected. During my first month away, I wrote twice a week. Then it became once a week. Then, once a month. Her voice was soft, without much emotion, as if she were telling someone else's story. I wrote for an entire year. I sent every single one to this address. She paused, her gaze sweeping over this little yard where we grew up together. But they all seemed to get lost. I never got a single reply. The corner of her mouth quirked up in a cold smile. Tell me, Suyan, was it a flaky mailman? Or did the recipient just not want to hear from me at all? I opened my mouth, but it felt like something was blocking my throat. I couldn't make a sound. While I was busy cutting all ties and thinking, I had completely disappeared from her world. She had been trying the oldest, most stubborn way to reach out to me again and again, and like a fool, I was completely oblivious. I had even, somewhere deep down, resented her for being heartless and forgetting me. A wave of absurdity and delayed pain washed over me. I finally found my voice, but it was dry. I didn't know about these letters. When I moved back, the house was empty. This box, I thought it was long gone. Is that so? Bai Ningbing gave a soft laugh. Her gaze searched my face. So it wasn't because you received something, or were afraid of receiving something, that you were so desperate to move away overnight. She put a heavy emphasis on move away. No, I wasn't, I countered instinctively, raising my voice slightly. I just thought. But I couldn't bring myself to say the rest. I thought I wasn't good enough for you. I thought I should let you go. Now it just sounded like a coward's excuse. A pathetic attempt at self-sacrifice. You thought what? Bai Ningbing pressed, stepping closer. The scent of her perfume mixed with the faint smell of medicine filled my nose. Despite being pale, her intensity hadn't wavered at all. The air around us seemed to freeze. The director and staff exchanged looks, no one daring to interrupt. This had clearly gone beyond the scope of a show. This was a reckoning for a private grudge. I looked into her eyes, so close to mine. They were churning with so many complex emotions: anger, resentment, confusion, and a hidden trace of hurt. The things I thought time and distance had smoothed over. It turns out they never vanished. She had just hidden them away carefully. Until this moment, when this rusted tin box set them all off. I thought I heard my own voice. Incredibly raspy. Every word felt like it was being squeezed from my chest. We live in different worlds. Bai Ningbing. Bai Ningbing. You were meant to be a superstar, standing in the spotlight. And me. I just want to stay here and live a quiet life. Keeping this up would have just been a burden on both of us. I finally said it. The reason I had polished over 1,000 sleepless nights. Just to convince myself. Bai Ningbing listened quietly. Her face, expressionless. When I finished, she finally blinked, very slowly. Su Yan, she said my name, her voice as light as a sigh. Who told you that I couldn't enter your world? I was jolted. And who gave you the right to decide what was good for me? She continued, her voice calm but every word like a knife. You thought you were a burden, so you just ran. Without even asking me once. Without even a proper goodbye. Su Yan, do you really think that little of me? Or do you just think that little of yourself? I was left speechless by her questions. It felt like a giant hole had been ripped in my chest, with cold wind howling through it. These letters. She held up the tin box. The letters rustled inside as she gave it a shake. This was the world I wanted to share with you. I wanted to tell you that it's windy and cold out there. But every time I saw something interesting, or ate something delicious, you were still the first person I wanted to tell. She looked at me, and her eyes turned red right before my eyes. But she stubbornly tilted her head back, refusing to let the tears fall. But you shut me out. No. You just tore the door down and ran. She forced a smile that looked more like she was crying. Suyan, you're such a bastard. Those last few words, with a slight tremble, hit the ground softly, but slammed hard against my heart. The air around us went dead silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. The director frantically signaled the cameraman to shut down all the equipment. This was no longer variety show material. It was a raw, bleeding display of real emotion. Bai Ningbing seemed to have used up all her strength. Her body gave an almost imperceptible sway, and her assistant quickly moved to support her. She didn't look at me again. She turned, clutching the tin box. And with her assistant's help, she walked away, slowly and steadily, toward the crew's temporary lounge. Her back was straight, yet it felt strangely lonely and fragile. I stood there, like a clown abandoned in the middle of a stage, empty-handed and empty-hearted. Only her soft bastard kept echoing in my ears. It turns out what I thought was best for her, what I thought was a clean break, was just a cowardly escape in her eyes, an irresponsible betrayal. The sun was still shining bright. The chickens in the yard were strolling casually, and the sound of a neighbor's TV drifted from afar. Everything was normal, except for my world, which had completely fallen apart in the last few minutes, left in total shambles. It turns out some wounds don't stop hurting just because you ignore them. They're just buried deep down, waiting for that unexpected moment to be torn open, raw and bleeding, for you to see. Bai Ningbing, surrounded by her assistant and staff, headed back to her trailer. The director wiped the sweat from his forehead and walked over. He gave me a complex look, patted me on the shoulder, and sighed. Without saying a word, he left as well. The villagers watching dispersed, while whispering to each other, occasionally looking back at me, with gazes full of curiosity and scrutiny. The yard cleared out in an instant. I was the only one left, amidst the trampled grass and leaves, and the faint, lingering scent in the air that belonged to Bai Ningbing. I slowly lowered myself onto the exposed roots of the old locust tree. I ran my fingers through my hair, pressing hard against my throbbing temples. Those letters in the tin box. I didn't even dare to imagine. What was written in those letters that never arrived? Was she sharing the novel sights of a foreign land? Was she pouring out her loneliness and struggles? Or was it repeated questions and waiting that never got an answer? And I, like a complete fool, hid inside my own shell. My self-righteous letting go turned out to be a knife to her heart. The phone in my pocket began to vibrate, buzzing incessantly. I didn't need to look to know that Weibo was blowing up again. Even if the director cleared the area in time, there was no guarantee that some quick-handed staff member or villager hadn't caught it on their phone. Sure enough, before long, my uncle came running over, clutching his old flip phone in a panic. "Yan, this is bad. The village boys are saying that you and that big star are on TV. Not the show, but those short videos. People are saying all sorts of things." I took the phone from my uncle. It was a short video platform, showing a shaky, blurry video, where Bai Ningbing and I were clearly recognizable. It had a sensationalist title and melodramatic music. The comments were even messier than Weibo. Speculations, insults, and drama seekers filled the screen. Confirmed. Definitely old flames. Look at the tension. This guy made our Ning Ning faint from anger. Death to the scumbag. Am I the only one who thinks? The guy looks pretty devastated too. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Poor Ning Ning. What is the crew doing? Protect her. Keep Ning Ning safe. This guy's side profile is insane, though. But if he's a real scumbag, then forget it. It's a script. Totally a script. Variety shows will do anything, just for the ratings these days. Script or not, I'm shipping this reunion. This trope is the G.O.A.T. I handed the phone back to my uncle. I forced a thin smile. "It's fine. Don't look at it anymore, uncle. It's just mindless rumors." My uncle looked like he wanted to say more. In the end, he just let out a heavy sigh. "I don't understand you young people. But before that girl fainted, she spent a long time wandering around your yard. She just stared at that persimmon tree and the well. The look in her eyes. It was heartbreaking." My uncle shook his head and walked away with his hands behind his back. I looked up at the yard, at that tall persimmon tree. In autumn, it would be covered in bright red little lanterns. When we were kids, she always nagged me for being clumsy at climbing the tree. She would be jumping around anxiously below, and that old well. In the summer, we'd drop watermelons in to chill them, then sit by the well and share them. That sweet icy coolness could chase away the heat of the entire summer. So she remembered it all. Not only did she remember, but she treated these moments, which I tried to forget, as precious treasures, writing them into those letters that never got a response. That raw, stinging pain spread through my heart once again. I stood up and brushed the dust off my pants. I couldn't let it go on like this. This all started because of me. The least I could do was stop hiding like a coward. I couldn't leave Bai Ningbing to face all the rumors and scrutiny alone, all by herself, even if she might not need me at all. I walked over to the crew's temporary lounge area. It was cordoned off with tape, guarded by staff. They looked at me with subtle expressions, but no one stopped me. The door to Bai Ningbing's trailer was closed. Her assistant, a sharp-looking girl with short hair named Xiao Yang, stood outside on her phone, whispering something. Her brows were tightly knit. Seeing me approach, she ended the call. Her gaze was full of scrutiny and wariness. "Mr. Seo, is something the matter?" Her tone was polite, but distant. "I want to see Bai Ningbing." She raised an eyebrow. "Ningbing needs to rest. It's not a good time for guests. And Mr. Su," she paused, her voice dropping lower. "You saw what happened earlier. Regardless of your personal history, Ninebing is a guest on this show and a public figure. Your presence has already caused her a great deal of trouble. It might even affect her work and reputation. I hope you can understand and keep your distance for now." She was blunt and unapologetic. But, from her perspective, she was right. "I know," I nodded. "I just want to apologize to her in person. There are things that need to be cleared up. I'll leave as soon as I'm done. I won't disturb her rest, and I won't appear on camera again." The assistant looked hesitant. She clearly didn't believe me, and she didn't want me nearby Ningbing. Just then, the trailer door clicked open from the inside. Bai Ningbing stood at the door. She had changed out of the floral dress into a simple white cotton t-shirt and light gray sweatpants. She wore no makeup, and her face was still pale, but her eyes were clear and calm once more, with a hint of weary indifference. "Xiao Yang," she said, her voice a little raspy. She was speaking to the assistant. "Let me speak with him alone." "But Ningbing, your health," Xiao Yang began. "It's fine, just a few minutes." Her tone was flat, but left no room for argument. Xiao Yang looked at her, then shot me another glare. She eventually stepped away reluctantly, turning her back, but stayed close enough to rush back at any moment. Bai Ningbing stepped down from the trailer and closed the door behind her. There was about a meter between us. Silence hung heavy in the air. "What do you want to say?" She spoke first. Her gaze was on the locust tree behind me, not looking at me. My throat felt dry. I rehearsed my words again, only for a few dry words to escape. "I'm sorry." She gave an almost imperceptible laugh, full of mockery. "Sorry? Sorry for what? Leaving without a word? Or being sorry for not reading those letters?" She finally turned her gaze toward me, or making me look like a fool, waiting for an echo that would never come. Every word felt like a whip against my heart. It was my fault. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to meet her eyes. "I'm sorry, Bai Ningbing. I was self-righteous. I was a coward. I messed everything up. When I left, it wasn't because of what I received or didn't receive. I truly believed we were at a crossroad. You were going on to bigger and better things. That's great, but that's not where I belonged or wanted to be. I thought cutting ties would be better for both of us. To let you fly without any baggage, and keep me from just settling for less." I spoke slowly, trying to find the right words. I dug up all those dark thoughts I'd never told a soul, and laid them bare before her. "I never thought you'd write to me, and I certainly never imagined that my parents would shove those letters into that box while they were clearing out our old stuff. I thought that box was lost years ago. It must have been moved back to the village with all the other junk, and then forgotten in that crack in the wall by mistake." I gave a bitter laugh. I know it sounds like an excuse, but that's the ridiculous truth. If I had just looked back at that house, even once, or checked those old boxes we brought back, I would have found them. But I didn't. I ran away like a deserter, and didn't look back. I kept telling myself it was the right thing to do. Bai Ningbing listened quietly, her face expressionless, only her fingers, resting at her side, curled slightly. "My life has been very quiet these past 3 years," I continued, my voice dropping lower. "Farming, cooking, fixing things up, taking on the occasional job. I really thought I'd moved on from the past, until I saw you on TV, until you were back, until you pushed open my gate." I paused, my eyes starting to sting. That's when I realized I never let go. I just buried it all deep down, so deep that I actually convinced myself I'd forgotten. "Bai Ningbing, I regret it. Not the leaving, but the way I left. I regret not having the courage to tell you to your face. I regret leaving you alone to deal with all the confusion and the pain." Having said all that, I fell silent, as if I'd used up every ounce of strength I had, waiting for her judgment. The sun filtered through the leaves, casting mottled shadows on the ground between us. From far away, the sounds of the crew testing their equipment drifted over. A long time passed, so long that I thought she wouldn't speak. Then, she spoke softly, her voice as airy as a sigh. Suyan, you're still just as self-righteous as ever. My chest tightened. You thought you were doing it for me. So, you made the decision for me. You thought you weren't good enough for me. So you unilaterally ended things. You thought a quiet life was what you wanted. So you hid yourself here. She looked up, her gaze clear, reflecting my panicked and lost face. But did you ever once ask me what I wanted? I was at a loss for words. What I wanted was always very simple. She took a small step forward, closing the distance between us. I could even see the tiny unshed tears glimmering on her long lashes. I never wanted to stand in that brightest places alone. What I wanted was to know that no matter how high or far I went, when I looked back, I'd know someone was there. He didn't have to be successful or dazzling. I just needed him to be there. Her voice was soft, but every word felt like it weighed a ton, sinking deep into my heart. But you didn't even ask before you counted me out. Yan, what gave you the right? I was speechless. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, hurting too much for me to speak. Those letters. She looked away toward the distant fields. Her voice dropped. At first, they were just complaints. Complaining about how bad the food was abroad. Complaining about the language barrier. And about how much I missed home. Then, I shared things. Sharing my successful auditions. Sharing the first time I stood on that podium. Sharing how hurt I felt when the media wrote lies about me. And then came the questions. Asking why there was no news from you. Asking if I'd done something wrong. She sniffed, trying to keep her voice steady. In the last one, I said, Suyan, if you really don't want anything to do with me anymore, you have to tell me yourself. Don't leave me here talking to myself like a joke. She turned her head and looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. The tears finally fell, streaming down her pale cheeks. But you didn't even give me that. Looking at the tears on her face, it felt like a knife was being twisted in my heart. The pain was so sharp, I almost doubled over. I'd never realized as clearly as I did in this moment just how stupid and cruel my decision to leave for her own good really was. I'm sorry. Other than those 3 hollow words, I had nothing left to say. Bai Ningbing reached up and wiped away the tears, as if erasing every trace of weakness. Suyan, I've heard your apology. She looked at me, her eyes returning to that familiar, distant chill. That distance. But deep down, something was different. But some things, once they're broken, they stay broken. You can't just say, sorry, and act like it never happened. She didn't look at me again. She turned back toward the trailer. Bai Ningbing, I called out instinctively. She stopped, but didn't look back. The letters. My throat tightened. Can I read them? She stood with her back to me for a few seconds. I threw them away, she said, her voice completely flat. I meant to find a place to burn them this morning, but my blood sugar dropped before I could. Then she pulled open the door and stepped inside. The door clicked shut, separating our 2 worlds once more. I stood there, staring at the closed door, catching my own reflection in the window, my lost, broken face. Maybe it's better she threw them away. Those letters, which held a year's worth of her hope and disappointment before falling silent. Maybe I don't deserve to see them. Some mistakes are just permanent. Some cracks can't be mended. Not every sorry is met with an "it's okay," and not everyone who leaves has the right to come back. The sun was still blazing, burning my exposed skin. But, somewhere deep inside, it felt like a piece of me had been hollowed out, leaving nothing but emptiness and a cold draft. I slowly turned around and walked in the opposite direction from the trailer. Step by step, I headed back to my old house. Run down, but at least it was my own small piece of peace. A world of my own. Behind me was her world, glitzy, glamorous, and now nothing to do with me. In front of me was my own, as calm as a pond, and just as stagnant. Between us lay 3 years of time, dozens of lost letters, and one self-righteous, irreversible mistake. Like two lines that briefly intersected before flying apart. Maybe we really would never cross paths again. The production team clearly changed their strategy, claiming Bai Ningbing was unwell and needed to recover. They suspended the outdoor filming. Most of the time, she stayed in the trailer or the temporary lounge. The cameras focused more on the other guests and the village scenery. My yard became a subtle taboo. The crew avoided talking about it, and the other guests knew better than to come near. The village gossip about us raged for a few days, but with no new drama to feed it, it slowly began to die down. In this internet age, hot topics come and go in the blink of an eye. New trending searches soon replace the old gossip. Only a few stray busybodies still left comments on my Weibo, asking for updates. When I didn't respond, they eventually drifted away. Life seemed to return to its original track, quiet and monotonous, day after day. But I knew that some things had changed. I didn't dare watch TV at the village store anymore, scared that I'd accidentally see news about her. The number ending in 1017 in my phone never sent another message. The tin box and those unopened letters felt like a hallucination. They appeared out of nowhere and vanished just as completely. I went about my weeding and watering as usual, watching the vegetable sprouts grow day by day. But it felt like a piece of my heart was missing. I felt hollow, unable to find the energy for anything. Sometimes my uncle would look at me as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he'd just shake his head and hand me a cigarette. I didn't smoke, but I'd take it and watch it slowly burn out between my fingers. Occasionally, I'd catch a glimpse of Bai Ningbing. Sometimes it was after they finished filming. She'd be in a simple hoodie and jeans, wearing a hat and a mask, accompanied by her assistant. She'd take slow walks along the village paths. The sunset would stretch her shadow long, making her look frail and lonely. We didn't say hello. We didn't even make eye contact. We passed each other like two complete strangers. Other times, in the early morning, I'd open my front gate to find things left outside the fence. Sometimes it was a beautifully packaged box of imported snacks. Other times it was a few brand new books on organic farming and crop cultivation. There was no name, but I knew who left them. She no longer tried to talk to me, nor did she demand answers. She just chose this silent, stubborn way to leave a trace of herself. I didn't touch those things. I just let them sit there. The snacks would be taken by stray cats. The books would get soaked by the dew, and yet, new things would appear the next day. It was like we were in a silent, childish tug-of-war. She'd leave them. I wouldn't take them. Neither was willing to back down, and neither was willing to speak first, until the very last day of filming. That afternoon, I was in the backyard reinforcing the new grape trellis. My uncle ran over and said, the crew wanted a group photo with the whole village. It was at the village square, and he wanted me to go. I wanted to refuse, but my uncle said the village chief had ordered it. Every household had to attend, to show support for the village's work. I had no choice but to wash my hands, change into a slightly cleaner shirt, and follow my uncle there. A lot of people had already gathered at the square. The crew had set up their cameras, and the cast was standing with the village elders and kids. The atmosphere was lively. Bai Ningbing was there too. She stood among the guests. Wearing the show's official t-shirt, she had a polite, distant smile on her face as she chatted with an older artist nearby. When I arrived, her gaze seemed to linger on me for a fraction of a second, then naturally shifted away, as if I were just an insignificant speck of dust in the background. I can't quite describe the feeling in my heart. I found a spot in the farthest corner, trying to be as inconspicuous as possible. The photo went smoothly. Once the director shouted, "Say, cheese!" The crowd cheered and dispersed. The crew began packing up their gear. Villagers swarmed the stars for autographs and photos. It was a bit chaotic. I was just about to turn and leave when I suddenly heard a child's piercing scream. I looked over and saw a little boy, about 3 or 4 years old, who had somehow slipped away from his parents. He'd run to the edge of the square, where the filming equipment was piled up. Leaning there were several heavy metal poles used for the light stands. Someone must have bumped them, because one of the poles wobbled and began to fall toward the boy. "Look out!" people around him cried. The mother let out a blood-curdling scream, trying to reach him but blocked by the crowd. Everything happened too fast. I was the closest. It was pure physical instinct. I lunged forward, just as the heavy metal pole was about to crush the boy's head. I reached out and shouldered the weight, taking the hit with my arm and shoulder. There was a heavy thud. The metal pole slammed into my shoulder blade. The impact made me grunt in pain. Half my body went numb instantly. Sharp pain exploded through me, but I grit my teeth, using all my strength to shove the pole aside. Clang! The pole missed the boy and crashed into the mud nearby, kicking up a cloud of dust. The little boy was petrified. He forgot to even cry, just sitting there in a daze. "My baby!" The mother finally broke through, scooping him up and bursting into frantic tears. Everyone swarmed around us, all talking at once. "My God! Thank goodness for this young man. Su Yan, are you okay?" I propped myself up on my knees, a piercing pain shooting through my left shoulder. It must have been a nasty hit. My arm felt like it was on fire too. I must have scraped the skin. I tested my arm. Luckily, the bone seemed fine. "I'm fine," I said, waving them off. I looked at the boy who was still trembling, in his mother's arms. "Is the kid hurt?" No, thank you. "Thank you so much," the mother cried, her eyes streaming. The crowd parted, and Bai Ningbing rushed over. Her usual calm composure had vanished, replaced by a rare pale-faced panic. She pushed through the people, her eyes scanning me frantically. They landed on my hand, which was covering my bleeding shoulder. "You're hurt." Her voice was tight. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. "It's just a scrape," I said. I instinctively tried to lower my hand. "Don't move," she snapped. She stepped closer and grabbed my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. She glanced at the scrape on my arm, then looked at the shoulder I was clutching. Her brows were tightly knit. "Xiao Yang, get the first aid kit," she shouted to her assistant. Her voice was more urgent than I'd ever heard it. "Ningbing the cameras." Xiao Yang hesitated, glancing at the phones being raised all around us. I said, "Get it." Her voice carried a weight that brooked no argument. Xiao Yang didn't dare waste another second, and sprinted toward the trailer. The square went dead silent. Every single person was watching us, eyes full of shock, curiosity, and intrigue, and the lenses were all pointed our way. The director rushed over as well, looking concerned. "Mr. Su, are you okay? Let's get you to the clinic." "Xiao Li, get the car ready." "No need." I quickly refused. "I'm fine, really. Just some surface injuries. I'll just put some ointment on when I get home." Ningbing ignored me, and she ignored the director too. She just kept tight grip on my wrist, staring at the blood seeping through my fingers. Her lips were pressed into a pale, thin line. Xiao Yang ran back, panting, with the first aid kit. Bai Nangbing grabbed the kit and flipped it open, almost roughly. She dug out some iodine, cotton swabs, and gauze. The hand she used to twist open the iodine bottle was trembling, though almost imperceptibly. "Sit down," she commanded, pointing at a large, flat rock nearby. "Nangbing, I'm fine, really," I said. "Sit down." She suddenly looked up at me. Her eyes had turned red without me noticing, swirling with a mess of emotions: anger, lingering fear, and something else. "Suyan, do you really have to wait until your bones are broken before you'll listen?" Stunned by her gaze and tone, I lost my voice, and obediently sat down on the rock. She knelt down, but her movements instantly became incredibly gentle. Using tweezers, she picked up a cotton ball, soaked in iodine, and began to carefully dab at the bleeding wound on my arm. A cold sensation mixed with a sharp sting hit me. I couldn't help but wince. She paused for a moment. Then her touch grew even lighter. With her head down, her thick lashes cast a small shadow under her eyes. The sunlight hit her refined profile, highlighting the tiny beads of sweat on her nose and her tightly pursed, pale lips. The noisy crowd around us and the flashing lenses seemed to vanish. My world was reduced to her trembling fingertips and the faint, yet clear sting and coolness on my wound. She was so focused and meticulous, first disinfecting with iodine, then applying ointment, and finally wrapping it gently with clean gauze. She didn't say a word through it all, though her brow remained tightly knit. "Let me see your shoulder," she whispered after finishing my arm. Her voice was a bit raspy. "My shoulder is fine. It was just a bump, maybe a little bruise." I tried to refuse. Since the position was a bit awkward, she didn't speak, just looked up and gazed at me quietly. In those beautiful red-rimmed eyes, there was clear persistence and a trace of subtle pleading. I sighed, giving in and letting go of my shoulder. I pulled my collar slightly aside. Near my collarbone on the left shoulder, a large area had indeed turned deep purple and was swollen quite high. It looked a bit gruesome. Nangbing's breath hitched almost imperceptibly. She picked up another bottle of medicinal oil, poured some into her palm, and rubbed them together to warm it. Then, she pressed her warm palm gently against the bruise. The unexpected warmth and the pressure on the injury made me grunt in pain. Her hand paused for a second, her touch becoming even lighter. She began to slowly massage the bruise with her fingertips. The bitter scent of the oil began to spread, mixing with her faint, familiar fragrance. Her fingertips were a bit cool, but her palm was warm as she rubbed away the internal bleeding. Her movements were unpracticed, even a bit clumsy, but I could feel the careful focus and control behind them. We were so close that I could see the fine peach fuzz on her face and feel her soft breath brushing against my skin. A few strands of her hair fell over her forehead, swaying gently with her movements. Time seemed to stretch out in this moment, thick and slow. I could feel the countless gazes around us, hear the hushed whispers and camera shutters. But all of that was locked outside our two worlds. Beyond this tiny, quiet space, her head was down, her long lashes trembling. The beads of sweat on her nose never left. She massaged it for a long time, until I felt like that patch of skin was being toasted by her palm. Only then did she slowly stop. Then, she stayed in that position, without looking up or pulling her hand away. In a very, very soft voice, she said, "Su-yan, you're still so stupid." Her voice was so low, only we could hear, thick with a nasal quality and a suppressed, barely noticeable "so-be." You could have just let it be. My heart gave a violent squeeze. Like it was being gripped by something. It ached and stung. I wanted to say something, but my throat felt blocked. I couldn't make a sound. She finally looked up. Her eyes were redder than before, but her gaze had regained its clarity, even taking on that usual, distant, protective shell. She pulled her hand back and took the gauze, and with somewhat awkward technique, wrapped it around my shoulder a few times to secure it. After finishing, she quickly packed the medical kit, stood up, and took 2 steps back to create distance between us. Don't let the wound get wet. Apply medicine twice a day. She gave the instructions professionally. Her gaze fell on my face, before quickly shifting to the director. Director, please handle the rest. I'm going back to rest now. She didn't look at me again, or anyone else. She turned with a straight back, and quickly left the square with her assistant. Her silhouette was still slender and upright, her steps perfectly steady, as if the person who just knelt before me, treating my wound with red eyes and a choking voice, had been a hallucination. Only the lingering scent of the oil remained, but the burning warmth of her palm on my shoulder reminded me that everything that just happened was very real. I sat on the rock, watching her retreating back. My shoulder throbbed with pain, but an indescribable, complex emotion welled up inside me. The director came over and patted my shoulder. Su Yan, we owe you one today. The crew will definitely thank you properly later. Go home and rest up. Let us know if you need anything. I snapped out of it and forced a smile. It's fine, director. It was the right thing to do. The villagers crowded around, praising me and worrying about my injury. I humored them, but my mind was far away. Bai Ningbing's last words, and her red eyes, replayed in my mind like a slow-motion film. Su Yan, you're still so stupid. You could have just let it be. Was she blaming my recklessness, or was she worried? The thought spread like wildfire. But then, I remembered her turning away so decisively, and that cold word, bastard. The tiny, faint, ill-timed spark of hope was instantly doused by the cold reality. Maybe she was just being humane, or maybe it was just a lingering trace of pity. Nothing more. I slowly stood up. The pain in my shoulder reminded me of me. Everything that happened. The crowd began to disperse. The square was empty again. The sun went down, staining the horizon a magnificent orange red. I brushed the dust off my clothes and walked home, step by step. The crew left the following morning. In a grand departure, the village returned to its usual quiet. It was as if the clamor of the last few days was just a lively dream. Only the few traces of filming left in my yard and the occasional village gossip proved the dream had actually happened. My life seemed to get back on track, tending to the vegetable garden and adding the last few bamboo poles to the grape trellis. The bruise on my shoulder slowly faded, the scrape on my arm scabbed over and started to itch. The medicine she left was effective, but I stopped using it. That bottle with the foreign label, I tucked it away in the deepest corner of the cabinet. With all those other relics I never look at anymore. Sometimes, my uncle would try to probe. Yan, when Miss Bai was bandaging you up that day, she looked pretty worried. I'd just grunt and keep my head down, refusing to take the bait. My uncle would sigh and stop asking. The online storm was gradually dying down too. Occasionally, a marketing account would try to write something about the mysterious rural hero saving the beauty, but without any updates, the hype faded. My Weibo went silent again. The DMs and tags slowed to a crawl, finally returning to nothing. Maybe this is for the best. This is the distance we were meant to have. She's an unreachable star, and I'm just dust on the ground. A chance intersection caused a minor ripple, and now we're back to our separate orbits. Until one evening, a week later, I was sitting under the locust tree in the yard, using the last bit of daylight to fix an old hoe. My uncle had gone to town. The village was quiet, save for the chirping of birds returning to their nests. The wicker gate creaked open. Thinking it was my uncle, I didn't even look up. "Food's in the pot, uncle. Warm it up yourself." No reply. I looked up. Bai Ningbing was standing at the gate. She wasn't wearing a hat or a mask, and there was no assistant. She was alone, wearing a simple white shirt and light blue jeans. Her canvas shoes were dusted with dirt. The afterglow of the sunset bathed her in a soft golden light. The evening breeze ruffled her hair. She looked a bit thinner than during filming, but her eyes were bright. She gazed at me silently, still holding that familiar, rusted tin box. My grip on the hoe handle tightened. My heart gave a heavy, uncontrolled. Time seemed to freeze. Cooking smoke curled in the distance. The chickens were heading to their coops. The world was spinning at its usual pace. Yet, for use, someone had pressed the pause button. Why was she here? The show had wrapped ages ago. Shouldn't she be back in her glamorous world? Filming movies, attending events, and being a star. 1,000 questions raced through my mind, but I couldn't ask a single one. I just stared at her, watching her cross the yard, until she stood right in front of me. The sunset stretched our shadows long, overlapping on the dirt ground. She stopped before me. Her gaze flicked to the hoe in my hand, then to my face. It was a peaceful look, none of the intensity from the square, none of the chill from outside the trailer. It was a deep, quiet calm I didn't understand. "Is your injury better?" she asked, softly. "Better," I heard my own dry voice. "It's mostly healed." She nodded, saying nothing else. She simply held the tin box out to me. I didn't take it. "Take it," she said, her voice firm. I hesitated, set down the hoe, wiped my palms on my pants, and took the box. It was light. The thick stack of letters seemed to be gone. "The letters?" I asked. "Didn't you say you burned them?" "I did," she answered bluntly, her eyes on my face, as if watching for my reaction. "They're ashes now." I didn't know how to react. Should I be relieved? Or should I feel an even deeper sense of loss? Then, she changed the subject. She pulled something else from her canvas bag. It was a very ordinary, light blue hardcover notebook. The corners were worn, suggesting it had been flipped through often. I kept a copy. She handed the notebook over too. Her tone was as casual as if discussing the weather. "Burning the letters was for my own closure. But I think you have a right to know." I stared at the notebook and didn't take it. My heart was thundering, drumming against my ribs so hard my ears rang. "Bai Ningbing." I licked my dry lips. "You don't need to do this. The fact that I didn't get those letters is on me. It's my fault. You don't need to do this anymore." "I'm not asking for your opinion, Suyan," she interrupted, taking another small step toward me. At this distance, I could smell her scent, a clean soap fragrance, mixed with a faint hint of expensive city perfume. She looked up, staring straight into my eyes. The sunset glow in her eyes looked like two small stubborn flames. "I'm just here to tell you, and to tell myself," she said clearly. 3 years. I spent 3 years trying to process your disappearing act. I thought I'd moved on. I thought I'd succeeded. I won awards, stood on the highest stages, and had more people than ever watching me and liking me. I told myself, "Look, Bai Ningbing, your life is better and more exciting without him." She didn't speak fast. It was actually quite slow. Every word felt heavy. "But when I pushed open this wicker gate and saw you squatting there, pulling radishes like nothing had happened," she paused, her mouth curling into a self-deprecating smile. "I knew I was wrong. Dead wrong." I held my breath as she spoke. All that hurt, anger, resentment, and confusion, they never vanished. I'd just hidden them away, in a corner so deep, even I couldn't find them. Then you, and this yard, dug it all up so easily. She took a breath, as if gathering her courage. Su-yan, I hated you. Hated your self-righteousness. Hated your silent departure. Hated how you made me doubt myself like an idiot, making me torture myself. I even thought that if I saw you again, I'd tear into you, or just pretend I didn't know you, to let you feel what it's like to be ignored. But she trailed off, her voice dropping, a slight tremble creeping in. When I saw that pole falling toward you, my mind went blank. I only had one thought: you can't be hurt. Her eyes were getting red, but they were incredibly bright. She stared at me, not letting me look away. In that moment, I understood. Su-yan, hate exists because you care. Anger exists because you haven't let go. I'm mad at you, I resent you, but I'm even more scared of losing you. She bit her lip, as if it took every ounce of her strength to say the next part. 3 years. I've tried. I tried to fill every second with work. I tried to meet new people. I tried to tell myself that you were just a passing stranger in my life, but it didn't work. She shook her head, tears finally spilling over and tracking down her cheeks. It didn't work, Su-yan. I couldn't do it. Seeing you hurt makes me panic. Seeing you hide from me breaks me. Seeing this yard, seeing that persimmon tree, seeing that well, seeing everything that reminds me of you, I still can't help but think of the past. Thinking of how you promised a watermelon patch that would never run out. Thinking of the chilled mung bean soup we had by the well in summer. Thinking of you climbing trees to pick persimmons for me, and how you'd just grin at me even after falling and scraping your knees. Her tears fell even faster, her voice choking up, yet she obsessively continued. Time didn't make me forget you, Su-yan. It just took everything about you and brewed it into a stronger, more bitter wine. I thought I had quit you, but the moment I catch even a hint of your scent, I completely break down. I stood there frozen, as if a spell had been cast on me. She forcefully wiped the tears from her face, lifted her chin, and looked at me with a gaze that seemed ready to risk everything. I don't plan on running away anymore, Su-yan, and I won't allow you to run away either. Those letters were what the past me wanted to say to the past you. It doesn't matter if you read them or not. I've already scattered the ashes. Consider it closure for those 3 years. She gently placed the light blue notebook on the stone mill beside me. But this is what the current me wants to say to the current you. She took a step back, but her gaze remained locked onto me. Su-yan, I'm not here to settle old scores with you, nor am I here to beg you to change your mind. That would be meaningless. I'm here to tell you that I still like you, more than 3 years ago, more than any other time. Liking you has nothing to do with me being a star, nor does it matter where you are. It only concerns me. By Ningbing. The evening breeze stirred the strands of hair on her forehead, carrying that familiar scent that always makes my heart skip a beat. You can keep hiding. You can keep feeling unworthy. You can have 10,000 reasons to push me away. That's your freedom. But liking you is my business. You can't control me. And don't even think about trying. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was exceptionally clear, carrying a kind of sink or swim determination that echoed in the deepening twilight. From today on, I'm chasing you. In every way I can think of that won't disturb you. But we'll make sure you see me until you fall in love with me again, or until I've completely given up hope. As she finished, she seemed to drop a massive weight from her shoulders. She let out a long, soft sigh of relief, with the tear marks still wet on her face. She offered a relieved, almost childish smile. Okay, I'm done. She gave me one last, deep look, a complex gaze that was hard to decipher, filled with release, stubbornness, and a trace of subtle nervousness. Then she turned around, walking with a light, yet firm stride, toward the gate where she came in. She didn't look back, giving me no further chance to speak. I stood frozen like a weathered statue, still holding the weightless tin box in my hand. Beside me sat that heavy, light blue notebook. The sunset finally sank completely below the horizon, swallowed by the dusk. The yard went dark, save for the scattered lights from distant houses. The night breeze was cool, but it couldn't cool the fire in my heart. Every word Bai Nangbing just said kept echoing in my mind. I'm chasing you until you fall in love with me again, or until I've completely given up hope. So decisive, so direct, so Bai Nangbing, no detours, no testing the waters. She laid out all her cards, all her vulnerability and bravery, without holding anything back. Like a red-hot iron, she unexpectedly scorched my heart, the heart I thought had long since scarred over. The pain was sharp, my blood boiling to the point of trembling. I slowly lowered my head, looking at the tin box in my hand, then at the silent notebook on the stone mill. What was this then? A response 3 years late, or the start of a new, even more chaotic chapter? I didn't know. All I knew was the peace I'd struggled to maintain for 3 years. The fortress I thought was impenetrable had crumbled instantly before her words. It turns out I never truly let go. I'd only buried her and all the feelings related to her, the longing, the inferiority, and the cowardice, in the deepest grave of my heart. I had told myself that it was just an insignificant old dream. Now the grave had been dug up. The light was pouring in, and I had nowhere to hide. The night wind picked up, scented with the distant fields. I stood there for a very long time, until the sound of my uncle's footsteps reached the gate. Only then did I snap out of it. I grabbed the notebook from the stone mill, along with the tin box, and fled back to my room. I shut the door, leaning my back against the cool wood, my heart still pounding wildly. The hard edges of the notebook pressed painfully into my palm, much like her final look, and her words had seared a permanent, burning brand into my heart, one that I could no longer ignore. I didn't sleep at all that night. Bai Nangbing's words looped in my head, like a broken record player. Every syllable, every pause, even the slight quiver in her voice as she spoke, her red-rimmed eyes, and her stubborn gaze were all vividly clear. I still like you. I'm chasing you until you fall in love with me again, or until I've completely given up hope. Blunt and direct, leaving no room for retreat. That's just how she is. Even as a child, she had to have what she wanted, and she'd try every way possible until she got it. The only difference was that back then, it was tantrums and spoiled behavior. Now, it was a bold declaration. I buried my head in my pillow, trying to force those voices and images out, but to no avail. Finally, I sat up and turned on the light. Under the dim glow, the light blue notebook sat quietly on the desk. The tin box was beside it, like a silent witness. I stared at the notebook for a long time, extending a finger toward the cover, only to pull back as if burned. To read or not to read? What would reading it mean? It meant having to face her journey over those 3 years. The parts I missed. It meant personally reopening the scar I thought had healed, to see the festering mess underneath, and if I didn't, just pretend it didn't exist, keep my head buried in the sand, and act like nothing happened. But Bai Nangbing had already taken a shovel and completely dug up my hiding spot. Frustrated, I ran my hands through my hair, finally reaching out to pick up the notebook. It was light, yet it felt heavier than a ton of gold. The first page was blank. I flipped to the next, revealing her elegant, forceful handwriting. These weren't letters, but notes written directly in the book. There was no greeting at the start, nor a signature at the end. It read like a private diary, or letters written to me that were never intended to be sent. Soo Yan. It rained today. The rain in London is so annoying. It's sticky and damp, not like home. At home, it either pours properly, or doesn't rain at all. I thought of how you never liked umbrellas. Saying, it felt good to walk in the drizzle, only to get scolded by Auntie Bai for being stupid every time. The date was 3 years ago, not long after she went abroad. My fingers paused before I kept scrolling down. The teacher praised me in drama class today. I was so happy, I wanted to tell you. But when I opened our chat, I remembered. Oh, I'm blocked. Soo Yan, you really are a jerk. I landed a small role after the audition. It even has lines. The director said, I have spark. If you were here, you'd definitely curl your lip and say, of course. That's my desk mate, after all. Too bad you aren't here. Jerk. I'm being bullied by the other actresses in the cast. They're mocking my accent. It's fine. I'll prove them wrong. I'm just a little tired. If you were here, you'd probably tell some awkward, unfunny joke. Or just drag me out for a good meal. Soo Yan, I really want that malatang from behind the school gate. The kind with extra sesame sauce. Jerk. I won an award. It's a tiny one, but it's my first acting award. Standing on that stage, the lights were so bright, I couldn't open my eyes. So many people were clapping, but the one person I wanted to see most wasn't there. Soo Yan, did you see the news? Are you even the slightest bit happy for me? Never mind. I bet you didn't even look, bastard. I dreamt of you again. I dreamt you told me, Ningbing, don't go. Just stay. I woke up laughing and then I cried. Soo Yan, I hate you. It's been 100 days, and still no word from you. Soo Yan, do you really not want me anymore? Soo Yan, someone confessed to me today. He's a really impressive senior. I turned him down. I told him I already like someone, and that he's waiting for me to come home. Look at how good I am at lying. I even lied to myself. It's snowing. The first snow in London. I heard it's snowing back home too. Soo Yan, do you remember that first snow? We promised to watch together. Happy New Year. Soo Yan, New Year's isn't happy at all without you. Soo Yan, I'm tired. I don't want to like you anymore, but I can't seem to stop. Soo Yan, if this is what you want, then fine. I'll give you what you want. The last entry was dated 2 years ago. The handwriting was messy. There was also a small, blurry smear where the ink had run from water. Flipping further, there was nothing but blank pages. Until the very last page, where new ink appeared. Only 2 short lines, written recently. I tried. I meant what I said. No date. No signature. Just those words, pressed hard into the paper. I closed the notebook and shut my eyes. My chest felt like it was stuffed with sodden cotton, heavy, suffocating, and making it hard to breathe. While I thought I was being cool, by turning my back and starting over, she was all alone, in a foreign land, going through all of this, from the initial complaints, and sharing her hopes, to the later resentment, confusion, and self-doubt, all the way to that final despair, trying to let go but failing to cut the cord. Every stroke, every word felt like a knife carving into my heart. I thought my letting go was noble, a sacrifice. But it was just a cowardly escape, the heaviest shackle I could have placed on her. I left her to process the pain of being abandoned all on her own. Every time she needed to share or vent, She was met with an icy, unresponsive void. Meanwhile, I was hiding in this safe shell of mine, smugly proud of my maturity and freedom. Su-yan, you really are a bastard. A total, self-righteous bastard. I only drifted off as dawn was breaking. My dreams were a chaotic blur. One moment, it was Bai Ningbing at the airport, eyes red, clutching my sleeve. The next, she was on a podium, radiant with glory, but her eyes were hollow. Then, it was her standing in the twilight last night, crying and saying, "I still like you." I woke up with a splitting headache. Broad daylight was streaming in. The birds were chirping away. I sat on the bed in a daze for a long time. The notebook lay quietly by my pillow, like a piece of burning iron. Then, I made a decision. I picked up my phone and opened that number I hadn't called in 3 years. The one I knew by heart. The one ending in 1017. My finger hovered over the call button, trembling. My heart was racing, almost pounding out of my chest. I took a deep breath, and another, then pressed it. The line only rang twice before it was answered. So fast. It was like she'd been waiting for this call. The other end was silent. No voice. Only a breath so faint it was barely there. My throat was tight, incredibly dry. I finally managed a raspy whisper. "Bai Ningbing? Yehi?" She made a sound. Silence followed. Only the faint static on the line, and her almost imperceptible breathing. I gripped the phone. My fingertips, cold. The words I'd rehearsed 1,000 times, were stuck in my throat, forming a hard lump. My voice sounded ridiculously hoarse. I saw the notebook. Her response was soft, devoid of emotion. "I'm sorry." Those 3 words felt hollow, but all I could do was repeat them. "Bai Ningbing, I'm sorry for everything." A sigh, barely audible, came through the phone. "Su-yan," she finally spoke, her voice coming through the speaker, with a hint of distant exhaustion, and a strange sense of calm. I'm sorry. I've already told myself that 10,000 times these past 3 years. I told myself that I wasn't good enough, and that's why you left. That I didn't understand you, and I made you feel tired. That I was too clingy, too annoying, too self-righteous. Expecting you to just wait for me forever. Her voice was steady, without much of a ripple, but every word slammed into my heart. A dull ache spread through me. "So don't say you're sorry anymore," she said. "Your apology is a denial of all the pain I felt during those 3 years. That pain is proof that I was actually living, even if it was awful." I swallowed hard, unable to speak, my nose stinging with bitterness. "Su-yan," she paused, her voice dropping, a hint of a tremble in it. "I only have one question for you." "Ask it," I said immediately, wanting to grab onto any lifeline. Silence returned for a few seconds, as if she were gathering her courage. Then I heard her ask, her voice very, very soft, yet weighing a ton. "Su-yan, do you still like me right now? Not out of guilt, not as compensation, not out of nostalgia for the past, but right now, in this very moment, looking at the person I am today. Su-yan, do you still like Bai Ningbing?" The world seemed to stop in that moment. The birds chirping outside, the rustle of wind through the leaves, the distant barks of a dog, it all faded away. Nothing was left but the hammering of my heart, and her faint, cautious breathing. Coming through the line, she was waiting for an answer that was 3 years late, an answer that had crossed through pain, carrying the weight of countless hurts and misunderstandings. I closed my eyes. What flashed before me weren't memories from the last 20 years, but every vivid moment since we'd reunited. The moments that stung. It was the way her eyes turned cold the second she pushed open the gate. It was her pale, fragile face when she fainted in my yard. It was her red-rimmed eyes. As she called me a jerk. It was the deeply hidden hurt in her gaze. It was the way she knelt on the square, her hands trembling while treating my wound, with tiny beads of sweat on the tip of her nose. It was her standing in last night's twilight, tears falling but her back held straight, risking everything to say, "I'm chasing you." It was that unquenchable fire in her eyes. Those feelings I deliberately ignored and suppressed are now like a spring tide, thawing out. They've violently crashed through every dam of self-deception. Surging and overwhelming, I have nowhere left to run. I always thought liking someone was just a youthful crush. Just companionship through our youth. Only now do I understand. Liking someone means even if you're covered in scars, even across time and misunderstandings. The moment you see her again, your heart still beats uncontrollably for her. Liking her means knowing the road ahead might still be rough, yet being unable to bear it anymore. If her traces are gone from my life, the words "I like you," dry and raspy, were squeezed out of my throat with absolute clarity, without a hint of hesitation. Her breath on the other end seemed to hitch for a moment. Then I heard her let out a very soft, relieved breath, with a slightly choked nasal voice. "Say it again." Her voice softened, with a touch of bossiness and a bit of a sulk, just like the little girl from our childhood, who wouldn't give up until she got the answer she wanted. My heart softened into a complete mess in that instant. "I like you," I repeated. My voice grew steadier, filled with a tenderness and resolve I hadn't even noticed. "Bai Ning Bing, I like you, not in the past. But now, it's always been you." Soft, suppressed sobs came from the other side, faint, yet like burning lava. They pierced through all my armor and pretenses. "Su Yan," she was crying, yet sounded like she was smiling. "You really are a huge jerk, making me wait for so long." Yeah, my throat felt tight, my eyes were warm and wet. "I am a jerk. So, what are you going to do about it?" she asked through her tears, like a child, demanding an explanation. I looked out the window. The morning light perfectly filled the quiet little yard I'd kept for 3 years. "You said last night that you were chasing me," I said, slowly, my lips curling up involuntarily. "Is it okay if I'm the one chasing you now?" "Bai Ningbing, I'm not that self-righteous fool from 3 years ago anymore. I still don't know how to say pretty things. And I might still be bad at farming. I might not fit into your star-studded world. But I have a yard full of watermelons you can't finish, and an old well that can chill mung bean soup. I have the skill to climb trees and pick persimmons, though I might still fall, and a heart that was far too late, but is certain that it only wants to love you." I paused, feeling a warm tear roll down my face. "Are you willing to give this jerk a chance to make amends? And chase you all over again?" The crying on the other end stopped. Only silence remained. Those long seconds felt like a century. Then I heard her voice, thick with a nasal tone, yet incredibly clear, and incredibly bright, depends on your performance. "Su Yan, if you dare to run away again, even if I have to scour every inch of the earth, I will hunt you down and tie you to my side. I'll annoy you for the rest of your life." I laughed, even though my tears were falling harder. "Okay, I won't run anymore. Even if you break my legs, I won't run." The sunlight poured into the room without restraint, illuminating the light blue notebook on the table, and the rusted tin box beside it. Dust motes danced gently in the shafts of light, like a gentle salvation that has finally arrived. After a long, harsh winter, fortunately, time has not run out. We are still young. Fortunately, after all the distance, I look back, and you are still here, as am I. End of main story extra. About her faking, her darkening her darkening. Bai Nangbing has a secret hobby. She especially loves to see me flustered. This fact is something I only fully figured out 3 months after marriage. That day, I came home from work. The moment I pushed open the door, I felt the atmosphere was off. The lights were not on. Only a sliver of sunset light peeked through the gap in the curtains. The air carried a faint scent of the perfume she usually wears, but it was stronger than usual. Nangbing? I put down my keys and walked into the house. No answer. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. I pushed open the door and froze at the entrance. Bai Ningbing had her back to me, sitting on the edge of our large bed. She was wearing one of my old shirts. The loose fit revealed her fair neck and collarbones. Her hair was loosely tied, with a few stray strands on her cheek. The scene was actually beautiful, if she wasn't holding that gleaming utility knife I use for opening packages, and if she wasn't using the tip of the knife to slowly and methodically scratch at a familiar wooden box. It was my box for keepsakes. There was nothing valuable inside, just some old IDs from school, a few coins, and group photos with my classmates from high school graduation. "You're back?" She didn't look around. Her voice was airy, carrying an unusual laziness. Her hands did not stop. The knife made a faint, scritching sound on the wooden lid. My heart skipped a beat. This scene, this atmosphere, and these lines, they were exactly like the scene from that melodramatic thriller she forced me to watch. The exact moment the villainess makes her entrance. I composed myself and walked over. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying my best to sound normal. She finally turned around. Her face was expressionless, her eyes a bit hollow, yet a faint, eerie smile played on her lips. "I'm looking for something," she said, holding up a yellowed old photo. It was my graduation photo. I was in the back row, smiling like a fool. "Looking for what?" I sat down beside her. The mattress dipped slightly. She turned her head to look at me. The sunset light perfectly hit half of her face, casting long shadows from her lashes. "Let's see," she said, using the knife tip to slowly point at the blurry figure of a girl next to me. "Who is this?" I leaned in for a closer look. It was a girl with a ponytail. Her face was a bit blurry after so long, but her outline was recognizable. I think she was the class monitor. I tried hard to remember. "Jang, I can't quite recall." "Is that so?" She dragged out her words. The knife tip traced the girl's outline, very gently. "But how do I remember that she gave you a love letter?" "Did she?" "I don't think so. In high school, besides Bai Ningbing, there was simply no one else in my eyes." "Who sent it? When?" My confused expression seemed to please her. She let out a soft chuckle, put down the photo and the knife, and suddenly leaned in close. The fresh scent of her shampoo and the warmth of her body surged toward me. "Su-yan," she reached out, her cool fingers gently stroking my cheek. Her voice was pitched very low, filled with a calculated, sickly tenderness. "I wasn't a part of your past. It's such a pity." My eyelid twitched, but her fingertips slid down, stopping at my Adam's apple, ghostingly tracing it. "Your present and your future must belong to me, every single second of it, from every strand of your hair to your very toes, from every heartbeat to every breath. You are mine." She stared into my eyes, speaking each word slowly and clearly. "If I ever find that this place," she tapped my chest with her finger, "belongs to someone else." She paused, then suddenly broke into a sweet smile, leaning into my ear. Her warm breath brushed against my skin. "I'll tie you up and lock you in a basement, where you can only look at me, only think of me, and only talk to me. Is that okay, Su-yan?" I stayed silent. A full 10 seconds of silence. I looked at her face so close to mine, on that beautiful, flawless face. She was trying so hard to maintain an obsessive, gloomy expression, but that familiar glint of mischief, that little spark of smugness, and her slightly trembling eyelashes completely gave her away. I let out a sigh, reaching out to catch her hand that was still playing with my Adam's apple. Bai Ningbing. I called her full name. She blinked. Yeah. First, I said calmly. The one who sent me a love letter in high school was the arts rep from the next class, not the class monitor. You remembered the wrong person. Bai Ningbing. The yandere act on her face began to crack. Second, I continued, that utility knife is one I just bought yesterday. The blade is still sealed. Even the plastic case hasn't been opened. Aren't you tired of waving just the handle around? Bai Ningbing looked down at her weapon, and her ears turned red, right before my eyes. Third, I pulled her hand to my lips, kissing her cool fingertips. I looked at her helplessly. If you want to roleplay, you could have just said so. We don't have a basement. But I just finished cleaning the attic yesterday. You can lock me up wherever you want. Bai Ningbing completely broke. Su Yan, you're so annoying. She snatched her hand back. Her cold, moody act crumbled instantly, replaced by sheer, frantic embarrassment. Couldn't you have just played along? I spent the whole afternoon getting into character. I couldn't help but laugh, pulling her and my oversized shirt into my arms. I did play along. I nuzzled against her hair, breathing in the scent that always put me at ease. Wasn't I being very seriously terrified? Terrified? Where? She struggled in my embrace, her fists drumming lightly against my shoulder. You were clearly holding back a laugh. I saw everything. I tightened my arms, pulling her even closer. I leaned down to kiss her blushing ear, chuckling softly. My wife, pretending to be a villain, is just too cute. So cute that all I want to do is pin you down and keep you here. Her body went stiff. Then she softened completely, burying her burning face in the crook of my neck. Who wants that? Came her muffled voice, carrying no real threat. I held her, watching the last sliver of the sunset sink below the horizon. Twilight slowly filled the room. I stroked her back gently. So, Teacher B.I., what kind of intense script did you read today? That made you want to practice on me. She shifted in my arms, her voice growing smaller. I just saw a post online. It said to test if your boyfriend would be scared off by a yonder girl. It failed. And what did the test results show? She was silent for a moment, then, suddenly, looked up. In the dim light, her eyes were sparkling, still, carrying a trace of moisture, filled with total trust and tenderness. It showed. She leaned in and lightly kissed the corner of my mouth. Her voice was soft and sweet. My husband is a fool. He clearly saw through me but didn't expose me, just to play along. My heart melted completely. Pressing my forehead against hers, I whispered, if it's you, I'll play along with whatever you want. If you want to be wild, I'll be wild with you. If you want to be the villain, I smiled and kissed her. Then I'll be your accomplice. For the rest of our lives. She didn't say anything, just hugged me even tighter. The room grew quiet, leaving only the sound of our mingled breath and heartbeats. After a long while, she whispered, Su Yan. I didn't really want to lock you up. I know, but I really do get jealous. She nuzzled against my chin, even over old things that you don't even remember. I laughed, my chest vibrating. Then from now on, my past, present, and future will all be under Teacher Bai's personal supervision. Constant inspection, never leaving my side. She finally laughed, her eyes curving into beautiful crescents. Okay. The deal is sealed. No takebacks. Outside, the city lights were beginning to glow, while ours had just finished hosting a dramatic little farce of obsessive love.